The ultimatum. The crimson sky of Valdris Prime burned with dying light as Captain Elena Vasquez stepped from her battered transport ship. Her boots crunch against the crystalline sand, each step deliberate, measured. Behind her, the charred remains of what had once been humanity's most advanced research facility stretched toward the horizon like a scar across the planet's surface. "Ma'am." Lieutenant Jake Morrison's voice crackled through the comm device clipped to her collar. "The Zephyrian fleet is holding position at the outer perimeter. They waiting." Elena's lips curved into something that might have been a smile if there had been any warmth in it. "Of course they are. They want to watch the show." The Zephyrian Empire had swept through human space like a plague, consuming worlds, enslaving populations, and leaving nothing but ash in their wake. They called it the Great Purification. Humans called it genocide. But Elena, she called it Tuesday. "Tell me, Morrison," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone that made seasoned soldiers nervous. "What do you know about Zephyrian honor codes?" "They believe in demonstrating dominance through ritual combat, ma'am. Winner takes all." "Close enough." Elena's fingers traced the plasma, rifles slung across her back. "They also believe that showing mercy to a defeated enemy is the highest form of weakness. Funny how that works both ways." The ground beneath their feet began to vibrate. A low, thrumming sound filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Elena looked up to see a massive Zephyrian dreadnought descending to the atmosphere, its hull gleaming like polished obsidian. The ship was beautiful in the way that deadly things often were, all curves and lethal elegance. "Showtime," Elena muttered. The dreadnought settled onto the surface with surprising grace for something the size of a city block. A gangway extended from its belly, and moments later, figures began to emerge. Zephyrians were tall, graceful creatures with skin that shimmered like oil on water and eyes that burned with inner fire. They moved with predatory confidence, each step calculated to demonstrate their superiority. At their head walked General Kyros Nethian, supreme commander of the Zephyrian Third Fleet. His presence commanded attention, even among his own kind. Ceremonial armor covered his frame, each piece inscribed with the names of worlds he had conquered. A cape of living shadow flowed behind him, rippling with dark energy. "Captain Vasquez." His voice resonated with harmonics that made human ears ache. "You received my transmission." "Hard to miss," Elena replied, not bothering to hide her amusement. "Though I have to say, your delivery could use some work. All that dramatic pausing and heavy breathing, it's a bit much, don't you think?" Kyros's eyes narrowed. The other Zephyrians shifted uncomfortably. Humans weren't supposed to show humor in the face of certain death. It was unsettling. "You mock me." The general's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Your species kneels before the might of the Zephyrian Empire, or it burns. There's no third option." Elena tilted her head, studying him with the expression of someone examining a particularly interesting insect. "You know, that's exactly what the Korathian hegemony said, right before we turned their homeworld into a parking lot. The Korathians were weak," Kyros snarled. "We are not." Sure. That's what they all say." Elena's tone was conversational, almost friendly. "Tell me, General, how many human worlds have you actually conquered? And I mean conquered, not just glass from orbit." The question hung in the air like a challenge. Kyros's mandibles clicked in what Elena had learned was either deep thought or barely controlled rage. "Hard to tell with Zephyrians. 37 systems have fallen before my fleet," he finally answered. "Impressive. And how many of those put up a real fight?" All resistance was crushed within standard rotations. Elena nodded sagely. "Right. So what you're telling me is that you've spent the last few years beating up farmers and merchant colonies. Must have been exhausting." The insult struck home. Several of the Zephyrian warriors behind Kyros hissed in anger, their hands moving to their weapons. But the general held up a hand, stopping them. "You seek to provoke me," he said. "It will not work. I have studied your species. Captain, you are emotional, irrational, driven by primitive instincts. These qualities make you dangerous in small numbers, but predictable in large ones. Have you now?" Elena's eyebrows rose. "And what else did your studies tell you about us?" that you are ultimately inferior. Your technology is crude, your tactics simplistic, your unity fragile. You fight well when cornered, but you lack the discipline for true warfare. Elena actually laughed at that. A genuine, delighted sound that echoed across the wasteland. Oh, that's rich. Coming from someone who just told me he's been picking fights with defenseless colonies for the past year. Those worlds were stepping stones. Kyros' voice had gained an edge. Preparation for the true conquest, starting with this pathetic outpost. Pathetic outpost? Elena gestured to the ruins around them. General, this wasn't an outpost. This was a research station. We were studying xenobiology here. Fascinating stuff, really. Did you know that Zephyrian neural tissue is remarkably similar to certain Earth fungi? Both break down beautifully when exposed to the right electromagnetic frequencies. For the first time since his arrival, Kyros looked uncertain. You speak of things you do not understand. Do I? Elena's smile widened. Dr. Chun, our lead researcher, was making some incredible breakthroughs before your people decided to redecorate with plasma fire. Amazing what you can learn when you have access to fresh specimens. Specimens? The word came out as a growl. Oh, yes. The survey teams your empire has been sending to human worlds? They've been very generous with biological samples. Sometimes voluntarily, sometimes not. Science is rarely tidy. Kyros' composure cracked. You dare experiment on Zephyrian citizens? Citizens? Elena's voice turned mock-innocent. I'm sorry. I thought they were just another inferior species trying to muscle in on human territory. Isn't that what you called us? The general's hand moved to his weapon, a curved blade that hummed with deadly energy. You will show proper respect, or I will demonstrate the consequences of defiance. Respect. Elena's laughter died, replaced by something colder. You want to talk about respect? Let me tell you about respect, General. Respect is earned through strength, through honor, through keeping your word. You've done none of those things. She took a step forward, and somehow, despite being a full head shorter than the Zephyrian, she seemed to loom over him. You came to human space with demands. You killed civilians. You destroyed medical facilities and schools. You targeted non-combatants because you thought it would make us afraid. Another step. Instead, it made us angry. And angry humans, well, we're not known for our restraint. Kyros raised his weapon, but Elena didn't flinch. You will kneel before the might of the Zephyrian Empire, or your species will burn. The ultimatum hung between them like a blade. Elena looked at the weapon pointed at her chest, then back at Kyros' burning eyes. When she spoke, her voice carried across the wasteland with perfect clarity. You first. The words hit like a physical blow. Every Zephyrian in the landing party went rigid. In their culture, such a challenge was tantamount to a declaration of war. But Elena wasn't finished. You want humanity to kneel? Then prove you're worthy of that submission. Face me in single combat. Winner takes all. Your terms. You cannot be serious, Kyros breathed. I am a general of the Zephyrian Empire. You are a mere human captain. Scared. Elena's tone was conversational, but her eyes burned with lethal intent. It's understandable. After all, you spent so much time terrorizing civilians. You might be a little rusty when it comes to fighting someone who can actually fight back. The insult was calculated, precise, and utterly devastating. Kyros' entire body went rigid, his skin shifting through a spectrum of colors that Elena had learned indicate extreme emotional distress in Zephyrians. You dare. I dare quite a lot, actually. It's one of my more endearing qualities. Elena's voice hardened. But here's the thing, General. I'm not just challenging you to single combat. I'm challenging your entire philosophy. Your belief that might makes right. Your conviction that fear is the only currency that matters. She spread her arms wide, weaponless, vulnerable. So here's my counteroffer. Fight me, one-on-one. No armies, no fleets, no backup. Just you and me, and the question of who's really superior. Winner gets to dictate terms to the loser's entire species. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. Every eye was on Kyros, waiting for his response. Elena could see the conflict in his alien features, the war between his warrior's pride and his strategic mind. "And if I refuse?" he asked finally. Elena's smile was sharp as a blade. "Then everyone here will know that the mighty General Kyros Nethian, conqueror of 37 systems, was too frightened to face one human woman in single combat. I imagine that would make for interesting dinner conversation back on Zephyria." The trap was perfect, and they both knew it. Kyros couldn't refuse without losing face before his own troops. But accepting meant risking everything on a single fight against an opponent he didn't fully understand. "You seek to trap me with words," he said. "I seek to give you exactly what you came here for," Elena replied. "A demonstration of superiority. The only question is whose?" Kyros studied her for a long moment, his burning eyes searching for weakness, for deception, for anything that might give him an advantage. Elena met his gaze steadily, her own expression calm and confident. "Very well," he said finally. "I accept your challenge. But know this, human, when I kill you, your species will serve mine for 1,000 generations. There will be no mercy, no quarter, no hope of redemption." Elena's smile widened. "That's assuming you can kill me, General." "Big assumption." She turned to Lieutenant Morrison, who had been watching the exchange with growing alarm. "Jake, get everyone back to the ship. This is about to get messy." "Ma'am, you can't seriously be considering this. He's twice your size and probably has cybernetic enhancements." "Probably." Elena's voice carried a note of anticipation that made Morrison's blood run cold. "Should make things interesting." As the human personnel withdrew to a safe distance, Elena began to strip away her outer gear. The plasma rifle went first, then her tactical vest, her sidearm, her knife. Each piece of equipment hit the ground with a metallic clang that seemed to echo in the silence. "Interesting," Kyros mused. "You disarm yourself before battle. Is this some human ritual of suicide?" "Something like that." Elena flexed her fingers, working out the kinks in her joints. "Though I prefer to think of it as leveling the playing field." She looked up at him, and for the first time, Kyros saw something in her eyes that made his warrior's instincts scream warnings. It was the look of a predator sizing up prey, calm and calculating and utterly without fear. "Shall we begin?" she asked. And in the dying light of Aldris Prime, two warriors prepared to settle a question that would determine the fate of two species. #Alien General said, "Humans will kneel." She replied, "Kneel first." HFY Sci-Fi Story. The Reckoning. The twin suns of Aldris Prime cast long shadows across the crystalline wasteland as Elena Vasquez and General Kyros Nethian circled each other like ancient gladiators. The Zephyrian towered over her, his ceremonial armor gleaming with embedded technology that enhanced his already formidable physique. Elena, by contrast, wore only her standard military fatigues, looking almost fragile in comparison. "Last chance to reconsider, General," Elena said, her voice carrying easily across the space between them. "You could always claim technical difficulties and withdraw. I promise not to tell anyone you chickened out." Kyros' mandibles clicked in what Elena had learned was the Zephyrian equivalent of grinding teeth. "Your mockery will die with you, human. My mockery will outlive us both." Elena's eyes tracked his movement, noting the slight favor he gave his left leg. "Interesting. But hey, at least you'll go down in history as a general who got his scales handed to him by a woman half his size." The insult struck home. Kyros lunged forward with supernatural speed, his claws extended and aimed at Elena's throat. But she was already moving, twisting aside with fluid grace that made the deadly swipe pass harmlessly through empty air. "Too slow," she commented, almost conversationally. Kyros spun, his tail whipping around in a vicious arc that would have shattered human bones. Elena dropped into a crouch, letting the appendage pass over her head, then sprang upward with her fist aimed at his solar plexus. The blow connected with satisfying force, and Kyros staggered backward. "Impossible," he wheezed. "Your strength is insufficient to harm me." Elena flexed her fingers, studying her knuckles with interest. "You know, that's what the Korathian champion said, right before I introduced his face to the pavement. You fought Korathians?" There was genuine surprise in Kyros' voice now. "Oh, I've fought lots of things, General. Carathians, Vexery Raiders, those nasty little spider creatures from the Outer Rim. Amazing what you pick up when you spend 20 years in special operations. She began to circle him again, her movements loose and predatory. But you know what I learned from all that fighting? Every species has a weakness. The Carathians couldn't handle rapid altitude changes. The Vexery were allergic to subsonic frequencies. And Zephyrians? Elena's smile was sharp as a blade. Zephyrians are weak to electromagnetic pulses. Really messes with your nervous system. Kyros' eyes widened in understanding, but it was already too late. Elena's hand moved to a small device clipped to her belt, and the air around them suddenly crackled with energy. The general's movements became sluggish, uncontrolled. His enhanced armor began to spark and fail. "You cheated," he snarled, struggling to maintain his balance. "I prepared." Elena's voice was cold as vacuum. "There's a difference." She closed the distance between them in 3 quick steps, her fist connecting with his jaw with enough force to send him stumbling. "You see, General, while you were busy terrorizing farmers and merchants, I was studying your species, learning your weaknesses, planning for this exact moment." Another blow, this one to his midsection. Kyros doubled over, gasping. "The research station you destroyed? It wasn't just studying xenobiology. It was developing weapons. Specifically, weapons designed to kill Zephyrians." "Treachery," Kyros wheezed. "Strategy," Elena corrected. "Though I suppose the distinction might be lost on someone who thinks orbital bombardment of civilian targets counts as military tactics." She grabbed his head and drove her knee upward, connecting with his face with a wet crunch. Kyros toppled backward, his luminous blood staining the crystalline sand beneath him. "Tell me, General," Elena said, standing over his fallen form, "how does it feel to be on the receiving end? To be the one who's outmatched and outgunned?" Kyros tried to rise, but his movements were still sluggish from the electromagnetic pulse. You cannot defeat the entire Zephyrian Empire with tricks and gadgets." "Who said anything about tricks?" Elena's laugh was genuinely amused. "General, you made a fundamental error in your assessment of humanity. You assumed we were like you, that we fought for dominance, for the thrill of conquest." She knelt beside him, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But we don't fight for conquest, General. We fight for survival. And when a species threatens our survival, we don't just defeat them, we eliminate them." "You speak of genocide," Kyros said, genuine horror in his voice. "I speak of necessity." Elena's expression hardened. "How many human colonies did your fleet destroy? How many children died in your purification campaigns? How many families were torn apart because you decided we were inferior?" She stood, looking down at him with eyes that held no mercy. "You want to know the difference between humans and Zephyrians? When we're pushed to the brink, we don't just push back. We push through. We adapt. We overcome. And we remember." The electromagnetic pulse device powered down, and Kyros felt his strength returning, but he made no move to attack. Something in Elena's voice and her posture told him that the real fight was just beginning. "The weapons platform you destroyed," Elena continued, "wasn't our only research facility. It was one of 37, each one designed to counter a specific threat, each one developing new ways to defend humanity." Kyros' eyes widened. 37. The same number. The systems you conquered. "Yes." Elena's smile was devoid of warmth. "We've been tracking your progress, General, learning from every world you destroyed. Every atrocity you committed gave us new data, new insights into your methods." She walked to where her discarded weapons lay, but instead of picking them up, she activated a small communication device. "Morrison, signal the fleet. Execute Operation Payback." "Ma'am." The lieutenant's voice crackled through the speaker. "Are you certain? The collateral damage will be extensive." "I'm certain. Begin the countdown." Elena looked back at Kyros, who was struggling to his feet. "You see, General, while you were busy playing conqueror, humanity was playing a longer game. Every world you destroyed, every life you took, it all added to our motivation, our determination to see you stopped." You cannot destroy an entire species, Kyros said, but his voice lacked conviction. Can't we? Elena's tone was almost conversational. You know, the Carathian hegemony thought the same thing, right up until their homeworld became a cloud of radioactive dust. Turns out, when you threaten humanity's existence, we become remarkably creative about reciprocating. High above them, the stars began to move. What had appeared to be distant points of light were actually human vessels, their stealth systems finally powering down. Dozens of them, then hundreds, then thousands. The entire Zephyrian fleet was suddenly outnumbered 10-1. How? Kyros whispered. Patience, Elena replied. We let you think you were winning. Let you gather your forces in one place. Let you become overconfident and careless. And then we sprang the trap. She gestured to the ruins around them. This facility wasn't destroyed by your forces, General. We destroyed it ourselves. Made it look like a victory to draw you here, to the specific location at the specific time. But the casualties were volunteers, Elena said quietly. Every single person who died here knew what they were signing up for. They died to ensure that humanity would survive, to ensure that species like yours would never again threaten innocent lives. Kyros looked up at the sky, where the human fleet was already engaging its forces. Plasma fire lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. You orchestrated all of this. From the beginning, Elena confirmed. Every move you made, every decision you thought was yours, it was all part of the plan. We've been manipulating you since the moment you entered human space. The survey teams, Kyros said, understanding dawning in his eyes, the ones you claimed to experiment on, were actually volunteers providing intelligence. Amazing what you can learn when you are people willing to undergo temporary genetic modification to pass as your species. Elena's communication device crackled again. Ma'am, enemy fleet is retreating. Orders. Let them go, Elena said, but track them. I want to know where every ship goes, every world they visit. The message needs to spread. What message? Kyros demanded. Elena looked at him with something that might have been pity. That humanity is not to be trifled with. That we are not victims to be conquered or resources to be exploited. We are apex predators, and this galaxy is our hunting ground. She began to walk away, then paused. Oh, and General, the next time someone tells you that humans will kneel, you might want to mention that we tend to be more interested in making others kneel first. You're leaving me alive? Kyros called after her. Of course. Someone needs to carry the message back to your empire. Someone needs to tell them what happened here. Elena's voice carried across the wasteland as she walked toward her ship. Tell them about the research station that wasn't really destroyed. Tell them about the fleet that appeared from nowhere. Tell them about the human captain who turned their greatest general into a cautionary tale. She stopped at the base of her ship's ramp and turned back one last time. And tell them that Captain Elena Vasquez sends her regards, along with a promise that if they ever threaten humanity again, the next time won't be a trap. It'll be an execution. As the human fleet began to depart, leaving the Zephyrian forces broken and scattered, Kyros knelt in the crystalline sand of Valdris Prime, not in defeat, but in a strange form of respect. He had come here expecting to force humanity to its knees, only to discover that humans prefer to fight standing up. The irony wasn't lost on him. In trying to force humanity to kneel, he had been the one to fall. And as he watched Elena's ship disappear into the stars, he realized that the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted in ways that would reshape the future of both species. The message would spread, as Elena had intended, across Zephyrian space, through the council chambers of the Empire, into the very heart of their civilization. Humanity was no longer prey to be hunted or territory to be conquered. They were predators. And the galaxy would never be the same. As the last of the human fleet vanished into hyperspace, Kyros remained on his knees, not because he'd been forced to, but because he had finally understood what Elena had been trying to tell him all along. Sometimes, the only way to earn respect is to give it first. And sometimes, the only way to make someone kneel is to prove you're worthy of their submission. The lesson had been learned. The price had been paid. And somewhere in the depths of space, Elena Vasquez was already planning humanity's next move in the great game of galactic survival. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, humanity would be writing the rules.